JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. Wednesday, February 12th, 3:30 or 3:27 on this fine afternoon. Really quick rant. Talk quick about the market. Some names I'm looking at, go from there. Take a look at the S&P. I wouldn't call it a worst case scenario CPI data report this morning, but if you had told me that was the results or that was going to be the data on Tuesday, I would have said, wow, the market probably would close down 1-2% somewhere in there. So to see a little bounce off the bottom, uh, again, I think it probably bodes well that this might be shaken off by the end of the week or sometime next week. So good sign on the bounce there. We do get PPI data tomorrow, so maybe if that comes in flat, that can kind of counteract a little bit of this move. Yeah, and then what do they say? If the the CPI data will have uh, three more months of egg headlines or what, I don't know. I'm trying to think of some kind of thing to put on FinTwit, right? The CPI saw its shadow. We have one more month of egg headlines. Anyway, that's probably it's gonna be like that. Just wait till folks get home from work or whatever, and then they're watching the evening news, and it's gonna be all about the inflation and say, oh well, we told you so. Blah blah blah. So we'll see how this all plays out. And again, I think if there's a good thing you take out is that the Fed didn't cut rates at the last meetings, and the expectation for them to cut rates has continued to go down. So it's not in a situation where, hey, the Fed has been aggressive cutting rates, and all of a sudden inflation's starting to rear its head again, and we're going to be back to where we were, a year and a half ago. So hopefully that's not the case. But either way, so that's the markets there. I was talking about some areas, 598, 594 in the SPY. So those held. What was the low? 598.51 today. So a pretty good spot there. And now we're back over $600. The 50-day moving average 598.15. So good sign there as well. I just don't want to see that lower high, lower low setup, and hopefully I can stop talking about it in the next couple sessions. That's the overall markets. Just individual names, and especially on. I was saying it this morning. Some of the better days are these reversal days where we gap lower, and all the people who, it's usually the same characters, right, who have called 97 of the last bear markets, 97 of the last 5 bear markets accurately, right? Because every time the market's down, they're pounding their chest like, oh yeah, we told everybody sell this or whatever, and then the market, but magically they're in calls the following day. Oh no, we closed out our Tesla puts. But anyway, it just seems I don't even know what rant I was getting on there, but I try to keep things a little small on these reversals, because these reversal days, sometimes you can see some crazy bounces. So this morning, and some of the names that were showing some relative strength when the market was kind of at the open was Redfin and Zillow. I look at Redfin, and then I see Zillow report earnings, and Zillow got destroyed. But then you see the news that Zillow is partnering with Redfin to list apartments and other listings on their platforms, apartments.com, things like that. And so you start to look, and I'm like, wow, for me, I want to see rates continue to trend down before some of these names really start to take off. But I looked at the chart of Redfin. I said, wow, it's consolidating for almost month and a half, and it's back over its 50 and 200-day moving average. High short interest, trades 1x revenues. If you've listened to my rants over the years, I mean, there's certain sectors that I still think need to be disrupted. The housing sector as a whole, the transaction side, the real estate side, all the paperwork side of all those trends, it needs to be disrupted, and it's just a matter of time. And I always think that, so I used to love Zillow back in the day, 2013, 2014. So back when they were just on the cusp, and Citron Research was short Zillow way back in the day. I think he said it was a $10 stock. It went all the way up to 300 and then split and then acquired Trulia. And I bring up Trulia because Trulia was a publicly traded company, but they had some partnerships with Zillow, and then all of a sudden they acquired Zillow. Zillow acquired them. I'm not saying, and they were the home listing site. It's similar. I'm not saying it's similar things here with Redfin, but once I see that partnership news, I'm like, 1 billion market cap. Redfin's getting into other things outside the housing side. So, hey, rants for other days, but I got very inexpensive spec lotto calls. Don't be surprised if I add more strikes to Encompass earnings. I think they report earnings. They haven't announced their date yet, did they? Oh no, wait, they did. Is it February 20th? Whoa, February 27th. Okay, so don't be surprised if I add just some inexpensive calls, because Redfin was great to me in the fall when it really had that monster rally from like 7, 8 all the way up to 13. Did it go 13, 14? All right, so that's Redfin. I also added some spec calls here on Dell. Similar situation. I mean, it's had a nice bounce off the lows to start February, but the 50-day moving average 114.17. It was starting to move. Super Micro reported great earnings, and typically that bodes well for Dell, right? And considering where it's been, I mean, it was $145 stock entering December or before its earnings uh, at the end of November. Not so it was only up 1% when Super Micro was up substantially more in the morning. So I figured there would be some catch up. It started to break in the morning, all the way back down to 112.50, then back to that 114 handle, and then it's just been chopping ever since. Got tomorrow's another day. Friday's another day as well. 200-day moving average 122.67. Just gonna maybe it gets an analyst upgrade tomorrow or kick in the pants. But those spec calls, inexpensive calls for a possible move higher. At some point, it's gonna start to recoup a lot of the losses it's had. So kind of thought process there in Dell. And again, some on the reversal, some relative strength compared to what the overall market was doing. I thought Dell might outperform. So that was kind of thought process there. Then some other names that iRobot all the way down to 861 in the morning before squeezing. Just monster call volume. I didn't even look recently, but there was like 15,000 calls traded versus like 300 puts. Now it's 20,500 calls traded on iRobot versus 600 puts. You can take that with a mixed bag, and I'm trying to see if there's any spreads. Most look at the ask, so when it's typically at the ask, you can't really sell to open, but you might have it has a high short interest, so you have some folks out there who might be selling calls to open, hoping to cover their shorts, right? So that could be some of it, but just crazy volume. So still love the iRobot setup here. My 15 strikes were down to 20 cents. I was going to average, but typically that's not something I do. And I was saying this morning, I wish there was April strikes, but I'll continue to look for opportunities to play that one for the break. 925, then 1050, then I think it gets to 13, and I think it happens rather quickly. Which I'm not much to say here on Meta, but I just wanted to post this chart. Just insane strength on Meta. It's I keep bringing it up. There's Zuckerberg went on Rogan's podcast, and pretty much ever since it's been on a tear. So interesting. It shows how sentiment plays a part, in my opinion, with some of these names. But just an impressive rally. So that's Meta. What other names? So I was talking about Intel this morning. Instead, I went with some other spec trades, and then it sells off down. I think it hit 21.20. Did it hit 21.20? Yeah, maybe it was 21.20 at like 11 o'clock. I'm like, oh, good thing I didn't get the calls. And then it just melts higher, and it's pretty much at the highs of the session right now, 22.22, up 6%. Calls are still kind of inexpensive on a risk reward basis. It's not a name I've really traded too much, so I don't have as much conviction. So I'll probably just sit on the sidelines, but I would not be surprised to see that continue to melt higher for a couple of reasons. Of course, the first part being the sum of parts valuation. I think it's way in mid 30s, if not higher. So that's just some of it. Pun intended, some of the sum in parts valuation. That's Intel. Roku, it's Jekyll and Hyde, or Hyde and Jekyll, however you want to call it. It's up 2.5% here. I mean, just befuddling moves this week, all the way up to 91 Monday, all the way down to 80 yesterday, then reversing here today up to 85.29. I mean, the good thing, the premiums are holding up on the calls I have for next week. I was hoping the plan was to lock some in to cover costs. I don't know if I'll get that chance. Going to need a big move tomorrow. Can't rule that out. But that's that. They report earnings tomorrow. Other than SSYS, Trip, Teladoc, all just not doing too well. I mean, SSYS has just been floundering. Still has a bull flag set up, only down 1% today. Teladoc, I mean, it was still green coming in today, so now it's down 3% on the week. But still, considering where it's been, some consolidation, I guess, is in order. Still going to hold the rest of those calls into earnings. I think that's it, folks. Let's have a great afternoon. I'll be back rock and roll.